Hi, welcome to Bruce C TV. I'm your host, Bruce C. And I'm going to tell you a little Valentine's tale that starts out in 1950. That was the year that my mom and my dad got engaged. Now, my mom grew up as a tenant farmer out here out in the suburbs of Chicago, believe it or not. She used to have to get up before the sun came up, pick potatoes, and go to school. So when it was time for her to fall in love and find a husband, she was pretty picky. In fact, she was dating two fellows at the time. Now, she says she loved my dad the best, and I believe that. But she wasn't so sure about the security, he would bring for her. I think for her, she was not looking for a sugar daddy, certainly, but she was just looking for someone who she could count on. Someone that, she could really trust, and someone who was going to stick around. So my dad, up to that point, hadn't proven a whole lot of stability in his life. He ran away from home when he was 16 to be in the rodeo. He was involved with horses and all that kind of stuff. So he was a little bit of a wild character. Anyhow, she was dating him and another guy. And of course, he decided he was in love with her and he wanted to get married. So he showed up one day, knocked on her door, and he gave her a little box. And inside that box was this wedding engagement ring. And he said, I want you to marry me, make me the happiest man in the world. Well, my mom looked at this ring. It was probably the most beautiful ring she'd ever seen. She said, Russ, I know you can't afford this ring. How'd you get it? And he said, well, I sold my best horse. I think that act alone proved to her that she was going to marry the right guy. So they got married. Now, we're going to fast forward this story to 1998. I had met my future wife, Jenny. I wanted to get engaged. And my mom came to me and said, I really think your dad wants Jenny to have this ring. Now, my mom never got a wedding band. Her whole life, she just had this engagement ring. So she said, I'm sure you guys can find a band for it. So I thought, how hard could that be, right? So we got engaged on Christmas Eve. We got engaged up in the North Woods at one of my favorite places, Land O'Lakes, the Gateway Lodge. And it was a very romantic evening, but very proud to give her this ring. And decided, well, let's go on a search for that band. We weren't getting married until October of that next year, so we had a good 8-10 months. So I thought I could find a band. Well, guess what? It wasn't that easy. I kept looking and looking and looking. I remember I checked online all the time, was constantly searching. I'd go into jewelry stores, which was totally foreign for me. Anyhow, along comes summer, it's getting pretty close, and we're visiting my mother-in-law, father-in-law in Kalamazoo, Michigan. And it was a Saturday morning. Got up that morning, and my future wife, Jen, and her mom were going to go shopping. And they go, what do you want to do? And I said, well, I think I'm going to go to a jewelry store and see if I can find a wedding band. So my mother-in-law gave me the phone book for the area, and it was this tiny little phone book, and I ripped it open to the jewelries, and I looked down, and they had all these listings. There was only one ad. And I thought, well, if this guy's willing to buy an ad, then maybe he has pretty decent inventory, maybe there's a good chance. So I decided I'm going to go see this particular jewelry store. Well, it turned out that it was right next door to where my mother-in-law and future wife were going to go shopping. So we all went together. Anyhow, we parked the car, walked in, they went into their store, I walked into the jewelry store, and I perused everywhere. There was nobody in the store. I remember that. And a gentleman behind the counter sipping a cup of coffee, doing some work. He had a little vest on, a little trim beard, and he let me wander around the place, and finally I couldn't find anything. I just figured enough of this. So as I'm walking out, he said, well, excuse me, he goes, is there anything I can help you with? Well, typically I never say, whenever I go to a store and somebody says, can I help you? I usually say, no, I'm just looking. But for some reason I thought maybe this guy could help me. So I said, I don't know if you can help me. I seriously doubt it, but let's give it a try. Well, just then in walks my future wife, Jenny, and her mom. And I said to Jen, I said, hey, show this guy the ring. So she flashes him the engagement ring. And he checks it out. And I said, we're looking for the band to go with that because my mom never had a band, and that's her ring from 1950. He said, well, it's pretty typical of the time period. Then he kind of had this smirk on his face. He grabbed his cup of coffee and he said, what if I was to tell you that I may have exactly what you're looking for? And I remember telling him, I'll believe it when I see it. So he set down his mug, he walked behind the counter, messed around back there for a little while, then he came walking out, and in his hands was this long narrow jewelry box. It was blue velvet, worn, really worn out. And before he opened it up, he said, when I bought this store from the couple who originally owned it, they had opened the store up years ago, I bought all the inventory, and this came with it. He said, I've never even looked in this box. So he opens it up, we look, and in this jewelry box was a ring and a band, a ring and a band, a ring and a band, a ring and a band all by itself. Well, he plucked that band up. My wife stuck out her finger, and he slipped it on. And not only was it the exact band to go with this ring, but it was her size. Oh, I couldn't believe it. First thing I said to him was, how much? And not realizing that, hey, he could have said $2,000, he could have said anything he wanted. But he was a fair guy. And I remember he took it out and he got his little jewelry thing, and there was a little tag on there with blue ink, a number scribbled in blue ink. And he tried as hard as he could to see how much it was worth or how much they had charged back then. And finally he said, what do you think about $200? I gave him my credit card, and the rest is history. That's a Valentine story for the ages. I think it's nothing short of divine intervention. Hope you enjoyed that tale. Look forward to seeing you again on another episode of Bruce C TV. To be continued.